Hello and welcome to Dili Timor Leste. So in today's video, we're going to do a question and answers session on what it's like to live here in Dili Timor Leste as a foreigner. So all these questions are coming from people that follow the Travel Inspired Facebook group. And yeah, there's been some fantastic questions. So we're going to start off with one from Heather. And she says, is Timor Leste becoming a more popular tourist destination? If so, what accommodation is available and how easy is it to get around? So I'll try and keep the answers as succinct as possible, but I've definitely got a bit of a habit of rambling on. Is Timor-Leste becoming a more popular tourist destination? My experience over the last 4 years is there's been a mix. So pre-pandemic, there were much more cruise ships. You were maybe getting 8 to 10 cruise ships a year come in, with between kind of 800 and 3,000 people. They would come in for a day and go off and explore for the day, back on the ship and then disappear to the next destination. Obviously during the pandemic, that all disappeared. And over the last 2 or 3 months, they've started to trickle back in. So I think there's been 2 cruise ships in the past 3 months with lesser numbers, but it's good to see the tourists coming back in again via the cruise ships. From a general tourism point of view and travelers who are flying in, it's still pretty rare to see real, genuine travelers in Dili, Timor-Leste. In the past month, actually, here in Dili, bumped into 2 and we got chatting and had a coffee and kind of talked about tourism, Timor-Leste, and what brought people here. I always find that quite interesting. And so the first guy had actually cycled through Indonesia, through Borneo, and ended up getting a boat into Timor-Leste, crossed over the border, and was here to visit just for the day on his bicycle because no one he knew had been here, and so that was what brought him here. We had a coffee at beachside here and got talking, and it was just interesting to find out that that was the reason he was here. And then I got chatting with a lady from Spain as well. And her reason was actually quite similar for being here, that none of her friends had ever been here. There wasn't too much online about the place. And so she wanted to come and visit for herself. And she was going to head over to Arturo Island and enjoy the snorkeling over there. And so those numbers are still very low. They were low pre-pandemic, in my opinion, and they're still very low now. But what I have seen, especially post-pandemic, that's grown and developed really well is the diving, snorkeling, and whale-watching tourism. And so there's some fantastic dive operators here in the capital, Dili, Timor-Leste, and they're really kind of leading the way to develop and promote and market the diving and the coral reef here on the Coral Triangle, in my opinion. And the same goes for the whale watching as well, between kind of October, December, January-ish time, where the pygmy blue whales migrate past Timor-Leste. And so the whale watching is, an incredible experience. I've been out there, done it myself, seen the blue whales, absolutely amazing. And so people are kind of booking in now a year or a couple of years in advance to experience that for themselves, and that's fantastic. And I think the country can really use that to grow tourism off the back of the whale watching, but also the diving and the snorkeling. The coral reef here is very diverse in terms of fish, species of fish. I've seen turtles, I've seen very healthy coral reef, I've seen dugongs, I've seen, like I say, whales, I've seen dolphins. So I think those 2 things combined, the whale watching and the diving, are kind of what are driving the small scale tourism. And then you've got lots of things around that can kind of support. So yeah, you've got the kind of relatively unknown nature of Timor-Leste, the off the beaten track location, destination, I guess. There's a little bit of what brings people here. And then you've got the coffee tourism, and kind of the cultural side of things as well, and the historical and also the religion side of things that can kind of support the small-scale tourism. But I really feel like it's those 2 things, the diving and the whale watching, that will be the future of tourism here in Timor-Leste, in my opinion. So in terms of accommodation in the capital, you've got lots of accommodation options. I would say that because we're using the US dollar here in Timor-Leste, the accommodation you're getting is fairly expensive. So for one of the higher end hotels, you're looking at 100 plus USD per night in the capital. One of those tourists that I bumped into last month that I mentioned had actually booked an Airbnb online in the capital here in Dili. And I think she said she paid $14 and she said it was fantastic. It had AC, it was new to Airbnb. So it's good to hear that there's some more budget options becoming available in the capital. And hopefully that will continue to develop. The more that those become available, the better it is for the tourism and for people traveling. When you get into the districts, it's a little bit of a different story. You're basically taking whatever you can get in the districts. So if you're going to one of the more popular districts, I guess, like if you're destinations like Balcao or Mobisi or Gleno, then there's quite decent guest house. You're probably paying between 30 and kind of 80 a night for one of the guest house. You're hopefully getting AC, but you're at least getting a fan. And they're okay for what you're paying, but it's still fairly expensive. And then most other places that you're traveling, you're basically taking whatever's available. You can kind of expect to pay, I guess, $30 for something quite basic. And so that still needs to develop as more and more people visit the country. But that will all happen in good time, I think. And the final bit of that question was, how easy is it to get around? I guess you've got a couple of options. You can, in my opinion, the easiest way to get around is to hire a tour guide who will turn up with a car, and they know where they're going, they know how to drive the challenging roads. And the tour guides, I'm quite close friends with a lot of them here, and they're all fantastic. So I would say that's the number one way to explore Timor-Leste. You can obviously do it by yourself. You can hire a car. You're probably looking at around 100 plus USD for a four-wheel drive vehicle to go out on some of the challenging roads into the remote districts and so on. You can also hire a scooter or a motorbike. You're looking at around 25 to 30 USD plus per day for a scooter or a bike, a little bit more for a bigger bike. And also you can take local transport as well. So you've got the district buses that travel between districts here. They're much, much cheaper. You're probably paying kind of anywhere between, $3 to $10 for those buses. They've got set prices. But I would say, like, in terms of comfort and safety, they're still quite low at the moment. It's definitely an adventure. Fantastic question, and something that I'm personally very interested, Heather. As you know, tourism in general, but tourism in Timor-Leste as well. So thank you for sending that one through. Okay, so the next question is from Felix. Thank you, Felix. And he says, what is the currency? Do you have easy access to banks? And what is the biggest culture shock you experienced in Timor-Leste? And if I was to visit from Micronesia, the Federated States of Micronesia, which I absolutely love, fantastic place, do I need a visa? Okay, so a few questions there. So to answer the first one, what is the currency here in Timor-Leste? The currency is the US dollar. Do you have easy access to banks? Yeah, there's a number of banks here. So you've got kind of BNU, you've got Mandiri, there's a few other ones as well. In terms of the service you get from banks, it can be a little bit challenging at times. Service can be quite slow and not always clear what the process is you need to follow to do certain things. But I think, even in the past 4 years that I've been here in Timor-Leste, you've kind of seen that evolve. There's now a couple of the banks have online apps. So you're starting to see that, like I say, evolve, and long may that continue. But I've had no issues with banks. I can use my my New Zealand Visa cards to withdraw money from the banks here as well. And then I've also got a local Timorese bank card. What I will say is that, so there's lots of ATMs around Dili, but quite often you'll have to visit kind of 3 or 4 ATMs as they've run out of cash. The first couple of banks or the first couple of ATMs often, like I say, won't have any money in them, so you kind of end up cycling around visiting various ATMs to find ones that still have a bit of money. So what is the biggest culture shock you've experienced? I guess I haven't really had culture shock, like 300,000 in terms of, you know, a lot of other capitals. I guess that's quite small, but coming from Wellington, New Zealand, it's kind of a similar size, I guess, in terms of population. And I lived, as some of you will know, in Papua New Guinea before. I would say Papua New Guinea was a bigger culture shock. Very kind of very different there to my lifestyle in New Zealand, and I was living in a small tropical island, a town with 3,000 people. So I would say that was a bigger culture shock. But then moving to Dili and to Timor Leste, it wasn't really a big culture shock. You've obviously got the language side of things. So here, they speak Teton as their language, Indonesian Bahasa, and also Portuguese, and a little bit of English as well. So I've kind of learned basic Teton, enough to get by. It still should be much better, but it's not a strong point of mine, languages. And I guess, you know, that's always kind of the biggest change, I guess. It's not really a culture shock, but it's the most challenging thing for me to get to a level where I feel comfy that I can speak and interact. Coming from Micronesia, do I need a visa? So yeah, everyone will need a visa visiting Timor Leste. You can actually get a visa on arrival. So when you turn up at the airport, you will join a queue, and you need cash. So $30 to get a 30-day tourism visa. And so, like I say, you just you pay your $30 when you come off the plane, visit the booth before immigration. You get your visa and then go through immigration. There's different types of visas you can get once you're in country as well. So depending on your circumstances, if you're coming in with an NGO to do a job, you'll most likely get a work visa that the NGO or the organization will arrange for you, and they'll obviously be longer term. You can get a special stay as well for kind of those shorter term contracts. There's a variety of visas, but the tourism 30-day, $30 visa on arrival is what all tourists will get coming to Timor Leste. So I hope that's useful, Felix. Thank you for your question. Okay, so the next question is from Catherine, and she says, I want to know about transport or buying a car, what the supermarkets and convenience stores stock, the quality and options of accommodation, schools, what to bring with you, what can you buy there, what are the cultural norms in the workplace and in society, and visas. So there's obviously a lot of questions there. I've actually just answered some of those. And also, I've done a video recently, the cost of living in Dili, Timor Leste as a foreigner. So I'll leave the link below for that, because I've answered a lot of those questions in that one and given specific answers for those. But just to pick up on transportation and buying a car. So in terms of transportation, I guess a lot of people here will, if they're staying longer term, will buy a car. So there's lots of cars available here, and generally you're kind of looking between 3,000 USD, kind of low end, right up to your kind of 20 plus thousand for something much flashier and much newer. But you can look online on the Dili expats Facebook group, and there's lots of cars advertised on there. But most people are either buying a car or buying a scooter. So I think scooters are looking around to buy one between kind of 2,000, 2,500. Secondhand, you see the odd cheaper one, but that's the general price, and a lot of people are buying scooters here. So the supermarkets, yeah, I've actually covered a lot of that in the cost of living. You can pretty much get most things here, but I find the difference here is that you can't go to one supermarket to get everything. So when I go to do a shop, I'm generally going to like 2 or 3 supermarkets, and that's because, you know, some places don't stock the things you're after, so you may not be able to get bread in one place, but then you're getting, you know, fruit and veg there, or yeah, cereal or whatever you're buying, cat food, etc., etc. But yeah, you are visiting multiple places, and also once a supermarket is out of stock, it can take quite a long time for shipments to come into Timor-Leste. So the shelves will kind of be empty with all the good stuff for what seems like, you know, 2 or 3 months, and then suddenly, bang, they'll just fill up, and there's, you know, heaps and heaps of groceries. So anything else to answer there? I'm not too sure about schools, not really my strong point. Accommodation, we've answered. Cultural norms in the workplace, that's definitely, and in society. So there's a couple of things there. Yeah, cultural norms in the workplace, definitely a little bit different. I find things take a little bit longer here. My background is project management and planning. And so in New Zealand, yeah, 20 years of planning programs and projects, and then ensuring that they happen on time. You know, everyone's kind of following the agreed approach. And I would say, yeah, my experience is that things are a little more fluid here. So there's a few more issues you have to deal with, and whether that's kind of infrastructure and the availability of services and equipment, etc., etc. You are kind of fighting against all these elements, and things do just take a little bit longer. So that, I guess, was something that initially kind of took me by surprise a little bit, and it took me a little bit of time to adapt to, was just to have an understanding that things are a little bit slower and will take a little bit longer, but generally happen in the end. In society, I guess I've noticed, kind of as now a freelance videographer here in Timor-Leste, a few things of when I've been out filming projects, etc., of, you know, there was one in particular where I kind of wore a black baseball cap, maybe in this one, and a black t-shirt. And the people that I was filming at a rice harvest festival kind of mentioned to the team that I was with that, you know, this Malay guy, foreigner, is wearing black, and that's seen as a bad kind of omen. It's an unlucky thing that he's wearing black at this ceremony. And so kind of asked me to go and change my t-shirt. Obviously I didn't have a spare t-shirt, but that was something that I just didn't know about, and it was mentioned. And so now whenever I go out to shoot, I just make sure I'm wearing like a coloured or a grey or a blue or whatever colour t-shirt that just isn't black. And I guess there's been a kind of few of those things as well of, if you're at a sacred house where you're filming, that you shouldn't just assume that you can kind of approach or step in certain places. And that was, again, something I had to learn of. When you're filming, you're kind of in the zone and you're trying to get the shots, and someone tapped you on the shoulder, is like, oh, you can't be so close to the sacred house. And so again, that's kind of stuff that I've picked up as I've gone along. And I think that's really the only way, unless someone tells you, these are all the things, you kind of pick them up as you go. Okay, so this one from Elaine, who says, I want to know basically anything you won't find in a travel guide. So I think that's pretty much all this information, to be honest. And a lot of the videos I've done from Timor-Leste, like, I know there's a Lonely Planet Timor-Leste guide, but it's definitely not modern, not up to date. I don't know how old it is. I'd have to have a look. All of this info is stuff that you won't find in a travel guide. So next question from Michelle. and she says, "What's your favourite food in Timor Leste?" So I would say the first thing that comes to mind is not necessarily a food, but it's a drink, is the coffee. So coffee is grown here, grown up in the mountains, and the coffee's amazing. So I've got myself a little coffee machine here, and I'm kind of having 2-3 flat white coffees a day, and also kind of visiting some of the local cafes here in Dili, like Fatima's Cafe and Haha Cafe, and enjoying their coffee. So the coffee is amazing. And I would say, like food-wise, probably like visiting the local fruit and veggie market, particularly the fruit. So like passion fruit here is amazing and very cheap as well. In New Zealand, very used to passion fruit being like one of those luxury items, very expensive, whereas here you're getting like huge passion fruit. So you're probably getting 7 or 8 passion fruit for $1 at the local market I'm going to. And if you go to one of the bigger, more remote markets here, you can get much more passion fruit, but how much can you really eat? And at those markets as well, you're getting lots of like your tropical fruit. So you're getting pineapples, you're getting papaya, you're getting delicious kind of big red bananas, which are amazing for banana smoothies. And like I say, it's all very cheap. So I would say, probably all the fruit is my favorite food. So thanks Michelle for your question. Okay, so next question, what skills are required to work in Timor-Leste as a foreigner? So this is Cedric, thank you Cedric. And then he also says, do you know what the climate is like in Mobisi? So Mobisi's up in the mountains here. People told me Mobisi was cold, but when I was there in the dry season, it felt like it was still hot. Okay, so what skills are required to work in Timor-Leste as a foreigner? It's basically the same as any country, there's like a whole array of different skills that are necessary in country. And like for me, like I say, my background is planning and project management, and over the past 6-7 years is multimedia and videography. And so I've kind of almost blended those skills. So I do some advising for an organization around management and multimedia and planning, etc. And also freelance videography and editing and photography. So there's, the skills you have, I would assume, would be applicable here. It's just finding the right role that you can apply those skills to. But like you look at any NGO organization that's out there, like World Vision, Oxfam, many others, worldwide organizations, they need all those skills, that communications, marketing, project management, all your office management business skills, they're all applicable right here in Timor-Leste. So thank you Cedric. The second part, do you know what the climate is like in Mobisi? People told you it was cold, but when you were here in dry season, it still felt hot. Like it's funny, like, so dry season, obviously, it's going to be hot most places. But if you go out there during the wet season, I've been up a few times in wet season. It's definitely the place I've been coldest here in Timor-Leste was a night I spent up in Mobisi, staying in a guest house, which was just like a concrete block. And it was so cold. I had my sleeping bag, I had my beanie, I had a fleece, I had my jeans on. It was cold. Like, I don't know what the temperature got down to, but it was foggy and very, very cold. Not the best night, but like I say, the coldest night I've had here. And when you climb Mount Ramallah as well, the highest mountain here, it's cold up there. So, you leave early to try and get a nice sunrise view. So you may leave at 3 a.m. from Hatabiliko nearby. The walk is cold. You'll see Timorese with blankets and hats, etc. And when I did it, I was wearing a beanie and a fleece and a coat. It does get cold up there, so it just does depend. But yeah, thank you for your question, Cedric. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. This is from Francois, and this one was sent to my email. So he said, what's the realistic monthly rent for a furnished 1-bedroom in a normal area in the city? Is public transport any good? Is it safe to cycle? I see you do. And the general safety situations. I've actually answered these to Francois as well over email, but I thought we'd talk about it here. So the realistic monthly rent for a furnished 1-bedroom, basically you're looking like, I would say from kind of 600 USD per month would be kind of low end budget, I guess. And that can go up to kind of, 3,000 plus per month. And it really depends on, I guess, yeah, the area, but more so than the area is the type of accommodation you're after. So if you're looking to be in a secure compound that has like a swimming pool and maybe like a gymnasium and internet and kind of security, etc., then you kind of be more towards that higher end. Or if you're looking for something that's standalone, which is kind of what we do, standalone, Timorese, living with kind of Timorese, not in the same house, but adjoined to the house, so 2 houses. We've got one, and our landlady lives in one. You'd probably be looking down at that lower end. So I'd say, anywhere kind of between 600 and 3,000. You can obviously go much higher than that as well for something really flash. And you can go lower as well. I know people that have paid like 350, 400 for studios and 1-bedroom. So there's, definitely kind of the lower end and the higher end available. But I would say generally budget between that kind of 600-700 up to 3,000. And so the next one is public transport any good? So you've got microlets in Dili that go around, so these little colourful buses. Lots of people use them. They do set circuits and they just keep cruising around that set circuit during daylight hours. So they probably start at round about kind of like 7:30ish, I would guess, 7:30, 8 o'clock, maybe a little bit earlier, up until it starts to get dark. So around about 6 o'clock, 6:30, and they're very cheap. I think they're 50 cents or 25 cents. And you just basically, you'll flag them down when they're approaching, and you'll hop in, find a seat, you'll cruise around their route, and then you'll kind of tap your coin on the side of the microlet, and it will pull over when you want to stop. So ding, 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 and it will pull over. So you just need to find which kind of number, which color microlet is going your route. And I think there's a map online, I think, that someone's developed, which is pretty handy. So I've taken those lots of times before. As someone who's slightly taller, 6 foot, it can be a little bit kind of cramped in the back, so you might be head up against the roof. And because they are very popular, you do get lots of people using them depending on the time of day. So obviously morning, lunchtime, when school finishes, depending which session, they'll be full up with kids, and then kind of at 5:30, they'll be full up with people as well commuting home from work. But I would say, they're pretty good. And then you've also got taxis as well. So, I use taxis around Dili. You've got yellow taxis, which you can just kind of wave down, negotiate a rate. Most journeys around Dili are going to cost you kind of between $2 and $5 as a international. As a foreigner, you're probably paying a little bit more, but that 2 to 5 is that little bit more. So you can definitely negotiate. So I was just taking one the other day, which was maybe, kind of like 5 kilometers, and they wanted $5. We negotiated 4. Ended up giving him 5 in the end anyway, because he was a lovely taxi guy, and we were chatting and tetting, and gave him the $5. But like I say, between kind of 2 and 5 is generally what you'll pay for the taxis. You've also got blue taxis as well, which you can phone up, and you can make a booking for those whereas the yellow ones just cruise around. The blue ones, yeah, you can actually phone up and go, can you pick me up at this time at this place? There's much fewer of those. You don't see many at all, but that's something that if, again, they only operate, the yellow ones, sorry, the yellow taxis only operate during daylight hours, and the blue ones, if you need to get a taxi, yeah, after daylight, they're the ones that you would pre-book. And that can be a bit of an issue in Dili, is transportation after dark is pretty much non-existent with the exception of those blue taxis, and like I say, there's not many. So hence why I cycle, and that kind of brings me on to your last question, is it safe to cycle? I would say yes, it's safe to cycle. Obviously, you know, traffic is a little bit kind of unpredictable at times. People generally won't stick to one side of the road. They'll kind of take over the road. And so sometimes you might be playing chicken with someone coming the other way. Transportation, generally, the bigger they are, they get the more right of way. So, you know, you'll get trucks and cars and stuff pulling out in front of you at a junction, but you just need to be aware. So it takes you a little bit of time just to kind of get your head around how people are going to react. And then once you do, you know, you kind of know what to expect. Again, stuff can happen. Like my partner was hit off her bike about a month or so ago. A scooter, early morning, no one else on the road, just crashed into the back of her. She came flying off. The scooter kind of took off and disappeared. Lots of people kind of rushed to help her. She wasn't, like, she was bruised and shook up, but wasn't seriously injured. Touch wood. So that can still happen. But yeah, like I say, you know, I've been cycling here for 4 years, and I've had one scooter hit me also. Again, yeah, just from behind, wasn't looking, bang, hit me. I stayed on the bicycle. There were 3 girls on the scooter, all fell off, all very young as well. I think they were quite embarrassed. They'd hit someone, and a foreigner, so they kind of hopped back on and just took off. Sorry, you did ask one more question. General safety situation. Yeah, I've had no issues at all here in Timor. So, you know, I did get repatriated once back to New Zealand, but that was due to the pandemic, the COVID pandemic starting. From a day-to-day point of view, yeah, we've had no issues at all. Okay, so I think that's a good lot of questions and answers. I hope you found the answers somewhat useful. If you've got any other questions of what it's like to live here in Dili, Timor-Leste as a foreigner, drop them in the comments below and I'll get down there and answer them. Like I say, I hope you found it useful. If you did, hit the like button. Remember to hit subscribe. I've got lots of videos coming from Timor-Leste. And yeah, hit the little notification bell as well. Cheers, guys. See you soon. Thank you.